Well, good morning. You know, some of you are so far away, you would think that I bite. Really. Anyway, if you feel like moving up, feel free to move up because I enjoy having people around me. Now, how many of you have seen that lint in your lives? Anybody have that little bit of lint in your lives? And does the lint have a habit of growing into a rag and start taking over? And then the lint grows a little bit further into a blanket. And then pretty soon, before you know it, you can't see anything because the lint has taken over the whole thing. And everywhere you look in your life, all you see is this lint. Well, there's a way of getting rid of that lint. There's a way of washing it away. And how do we wash that lint away? Well, first of all, by seeing that it is lint. It isn't the blanket or the quilt or whatever is in your way. It isn't in every aspect of your life. It is only in a portion of your life. And too often we forget to appreciate where we are, what we're doing, and how much good is in our life right this minute. We tend to look at only the lint, only that which seems to be obstructing us. And here in the United States, we have a real habit of going, okay, I've reached this goal, now I got to reach the next goal. So we're always looking ahead. We're always reaching for that next goal. We're always looking to expand somehow, change something, be better, have more money, have more luxuries, have more relationships, have better relationships, have different relationships. And we forget to stop right where we are and appreciate exactly what we have. What we have. And here in this room, we have so much. Each one of us has so much that we can be grateful for. Each one of us has a roof over our heads. We have food in our stomachs. We have, I don't see anybody with torn, tattered clothes and no shoes. We have enough. And yet what do we look at? That lint. So in order to bring that lint back down to size, we got to do a little trick, and that's called appreciation. We have to appreciate who we are, where we are, and what we're doing right at this moment. After all, I couldn't be here standing here today if I hadn't had everything that happened in my past. So I need to appreciate my past, for one thing. So that bad thing happened with my father or with a cousin or with whoever, does that really have to affect where I am right now? No. It's in the past. I can leave it in the past and let go of it. I can forgive it. I can appreciate it, knowing that it opened me up somehow to be right here, right now, doing what I'm doing what I love to do, instead of worrying about that past. So Andrea, one time, and many of you may know Reverend Andrea. She used to be one of the founding ministers here in this church. And she went to a retreat to see Thich Nhat Hanh in France at his retreat center. And she got there and she had her luggage, and she had extra luggage because she had bought skates for her daughter and did some shopping before she went to the retreat. And so she had all this luggage, and she gets there and she's standing in line with all the other people and standing there. And a monk comes by and says, put your luggage down. And she goes, but if I put my luggage down, then how am I going to move it forward in the line? Put your luggage down. You have arrived. You have arrived. And he invited her not only to put her luggage down, but to come have some tea with everybody else. And it was very, very hard for the Americans and the Britons and the Australians and those of us that are really go, 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 always trying to get ahead. But listen to what he said. You have arrived. At this moment, in this time, you have arrived. You are at the apex of your spiritual and physical understanding at this moment. At this moment. Now, that doesn't mean you won't be someplace else in the next moment. But at this moment, appreciate where you are, what you're doing. Relax. Relax. You have arrived. Isn't that kind of comforting? I mean, so often we welcome people into our homes, and what do? They come to the door, and we usher them into a seat, and we ask them if they want tea, and then we ask them if they want this or that, and try to start a conversation, and not just, oh, thank goodness you've arrived. Welcome. Welcome. That little word can mean so much, so very much. And so as we look at this, as we start shrinking those threads of lint, you might say, we can start seeing what they are about. When they're great, big, and huge, it just seems like they've taken over everything, and how in the world are you supposed to know what to look at? Many classes I've been in, they've said, well, write down the thing that's bothering you the most. Everything. My money is not enough, my friends aren't enough, this and that and that. And I did an experiment one time, and I took all my aches and pains. And if any of you have ever heard of Louise Hay, where she has a little booklet that says, heal your life. And in the back of it, it lists some of the aches and pains, and then it gives an affirmation for those aches and pains. Well, I started looking at my aches and pains, and do you know almost all the aches and pains were one thing? One thing. They listed as different things, but when it came back to the affirmation was almost always the same thing. It was always about the same thing, self-worth. It came back to that over and over and over again. And so I decided, well, maybe what I need to work on is, instead of the aches and pains, I need to work on self-worth. Have you ever tried that in your life? Looked at what's bothering you, where your lint is, and decided, what is the major thing that you're looking at? What is it that you want to release, to let go of? It's probably the same thing you've been working on all your life. We have a tendency to do it over and over and over again. In fact, God is very, very good at offering do-overs. God doesn't mind doing that in the least bit. God will say, oh, you didn't get it this time. I'll give you another chance. And there's that other chance. And maybe it's a little harder. My son wouldn't face the fact that he had to leave home. He kept hanging on and hanging on. I don't know if any of you have teenage sons, but sometimes they're reluctant to get out into the world, away from mom and dad. And I mean, we had him sleeping out in the garage, trying to ease his way out. And he just wouldn't look at that and wouldn't look at it. One day he was riding his bike and his front tire fell out of his bike because he didn't fasten it tight enough. And he went down on it, jammed the gears through his lip and tore his face up and had to have some 30 stitches in it. And he goes, "Mom, I think something's trying to tell me to leave." He finally got the message, and he left within a week. He was gone. But he had to come to that realization that life was going to give him a little light message, saying, okay, this is something that's going a little awry in your life. You might want to change it. Then if we don't pay attention, guess what? It comes back around a little bit harder. And then it comes back around a little bit harder until finally you're getting hit over the head with a board, saying, guess what? You got to handle this now. And maybe that board is some of those things that we would rather not like losing our income or losing our friends or ending up with diseases that we would rather not have. So we have to come back to this thing constantly of looking, of paying attention to what's going on in our lives, of allowing our life to become our playground, if you'll think of it that way, our playground to experiment in how to change things. And I say playground because too many of us get stiff-necked and don't want to change. I don't want to change. I've got a dog that way. I can't get the dog out of the house. He doesn't like to go for walks. He cries the whole time we take him for a walk until we turn around and head back towards the house. Then he's happy and he wants to run back to the house. He doesn't like to go for rides until we turn around, and then he wants to get back to the house. He wants to be in the house. He doesn't like change. And yet, I ask you, what is life about? Constant change. Constant change. It doesn't ever quit. And that change has to go and help us move things, because we can't change something in our lives and expect it to stay the same. And as hard as we try, we can't have the government suddenly support us and be everything that we need it to be unless we're willing to change and support the government. We can't do that in our families. And so often we get stiff-necked and we don't want to change. We don't want to change our habits. We know that we should be exercising, but we don't want to change, so we can do that. We don't want to change our diet. We don't want to change our friends that we've had for a long time, and yet those friends might be tearing us down. So we have to appreciate those areas that are going well for us so that we can see that we can move the other areas where we need to put them, so that we can change those without so much fear, without so much anxiety. In Richer Living by Ernest Holmes on page 271 says, life fills all space and spirit animates every form, but since you are an individual, even spirit cannot make the gift of life unless you accept it. Now think about that. Can't give you something you won't accept. Life may have given everything to you, but only that which you accept is yours to use. Yours to use. So no matter how much Spirit tries to love you, If you don't accept it, guess what? You might as well not have it. It's kind of like going into the grocery store, and I've used this analogy before, so if you've heard it before, just pass it off. But you go into a grocery store and you have a cart. This grocery store, like Walmart or something, has everything you can imagine in there. But you have to put it into your cart, and then you have to take it up and you have to pay for it, accept it for your own. Now, if you don't put it in the cart, when you get home, you're not going to have it. Right? It's as simple as that. If you don't put it in, if you don't accept it, you're not going to receive it. And I will tell you, each one of you are so loved by Spirit that you have, it's beyond imagination. It is absolutely beyond imagination how much each one of us is loved by Spirit. Spirit doesn't see our past, doesn't care about our past, doesn't care about our limitations or our fears. Spirit doesn't care whether you said something angry. Spirit isn't going to condemn you for anything, because Spirit doesn't see anything but love. But love, it can only see what is. It can only see what it actually is. So each one of us is an expression of this love, and this love is so great, so wonderful, that it enfolds each one of us in a way that maybe you've never thought about. In fact, that love allows each one of us to exist. Because why are we here? We're here for one reason. One basic reason. It's not to learn. It's not to grow. It's not to try to change something. It's to love and to be loved. We are created out of love, to love, and to be loved. In all of its forms. In all of its forms. Now, if you choose not to do that, then what happens? You see all those variations of lint start gathering. All those little variations of it. Because anything that is not love is lint. Right? Anything that is not love is lack or limitation or doubt or fear. And that becomes that lint. So how do you get rid of the lint? You love. You appreciate. You show compassion. You care about people. You care about yourself. You care when you are talking about yourself, you don't downgrade yourself. My mother is a wonderful artist. And yet, if you ask her about one of her pictures, she will tell you every little flaw in it. And she won't share them with anybody. So let me ask you, is that being loving? That's the opposite of it. How could she not share? And I've talked to her about this before, but you know, it's so ingrained in her from her childhood and everything that she's having a hard time erasing that lint. It has taken over her life, and she's having a bit of trouble erasing some of that. And at 90 years old, I can understand that. But we aren't 90, most of us. We are younger than that, and we have the ability to change that. We have the ability to know that no matter what we do today, doesn't matter what happened yesterday. What we do today, right this moment, I would like to challenge each one of you to love and to be love. Last week, I got to speak in Davis, which was a lot of fun. They've got a little 20-person church, and it was quite interesting. But we talked about compassion in action, that kindness. And one of the stories was that a woman wanted to learn how she could be more compassionate, how she could be more loving in that. So she decided that for a full month, she would do one compassionate act a day and focus on that. Well, her husband was so enthused at seeing the change start to take over in her that he joined her. So they were both doing one compassionate action a day for a month. And she got to the very end of it, and she goes, "Why do I have to quit? Why do I have to quit? I can do one compassionate action for the rest of my life. In fact, I could do more than that a day if I chose to." And to this day, she is still doing those acts of kindness. Those acts of kindness. And they can be so simple. It doesn't have to be a great big thing of passing out lots of food or shoes or whatever. However wonderful that is, it can be as small as opening a door for somebody. And you know that Mother Teresa said the worst illness in the world is here in the United States, and that illness is loneliness. Loneliness. So one of those compassionate actions can simply be speaking to somebody, having some interaction. If you tend to be a shy person, get over it. Shyness isn't going to help you. And why are you shy? Because you're insecure. Well, guess what? You can talk to another person, and if they don't like you, they can leave. Right? But if they do, you've got a new friend. You have shown a compassionate action. Smile at the cashier person as she's checking out rows of people's stuff, especially after somebody's just yelled at her. It's really nice. They really appreciate it. I was a cashier for a while. I know that one. So this is Ernest Holmes again, Thoughts Are Things. It is impossible for you to receive that which the mind refuses to accept. If you desire to receive more, you need consciously develop the ability to mentally encompass it. You make your life mean little and limit its possibilities when you refuse to accept the whole gift of God. As you open your consciousness to a greater receptivity of the divine, to an enlarged concept of the good, that can flood your experience. Life will take on a new and wonderful meaning. And it will. It will. So instead of looking and thinking the world is going to hell in a handbag or a basket, however it's said, I sometimes get those mixed up. Maybe what we ought to do is look and see what we can do, how we can change things, and ignore the government to a certain degree, or what we're seeing. It is good. Life is good. You are divinely loved. And I challenge each one of you to take the next month and do one kind act a day in what you're doing. Even if it's just a smile, or opening a door, or speaking to a neighbor you've never spoken to, or speaking to somebody, some stranger on the street. I love doing that. One of the things I find is it's really easy to start up a conversation when you're short, because you go into the grocery store and you can't reach down off the top shelf. So you're always having to ask somebody taller to reach something down for you. And you'd be surprised. I've never had anybody refuse to help me. I've never had anybody shout at me or get upset. Most of the time, they are just grinning from one ear to the other, thinking it's great that they can reach something down for me. So do that. Show your love. Show your compassion. Let go of the lint. The lint doesn't mean anything. The lint is just something that needs to be cleansed from your own eye. And it's easy to do that because it's your own. Much easier than trying to clean somebody else's. So if you'll please join me, we'll do a spiritual mind treatment to bring this in deeper. Oh, there is only love, and love is divinity. It is all that there is. The love that has created this very world has created each person in this room, each person in the world. And I know without a doubt that even when I sometimes don't show myself as loving, don't express that loving nature of mine, that God still loves me for who I am, for being a person. And so I strive every day in every way to be more godlike, to be more compassionate in what I do, to appreciate all that I have at this very moment. Appreciate the physical things around me that fulfill me, that allow me to live with ease, and to appreciate the spiritual within me that allows me to open up to new ideas, to new experiences, that allows me to expand my mind in such a way that I get those aha moments. Love is truly all that there is. And I am so grateful for all the people here, for a church where I can stand and talk about love and not be odd. I appreciate my family, my friends, my animals. I appreciate the world that I'm standing on, for it supports me in all that I do, every step of the way. And so today I make a commitment. I make a commitment to do one act of kindness or many acts of kindness every day for the rest of my life. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this understanding, this clarity. And as I release this into the law, I know it is done for myself and for each person here, for each person in the world as I know it. No matter what's going on at the moment, I see love start to creep in, start to change things. Thank you. And so it is.